A sad day for the wrestling world. Wrestling fans, wrestlers, anyone who knew him. More in the passing of Howard Finkel, long tenured ring announcer, long tenured employee in WWE, passed away today at the age of 69. As a longtime fan, I can't even begin to do justice for the amount of moments that Fink had in his career. I can't even imagine anybody that knew him, that lived with him through a lot of his career, can do that. No one could do it like the Fink. And that was a great nickname for him. He had so many iconic calls in Madison Square Garden, the hallowed halls of Madison Square Garden, and at WrestleMania, and all over so many decades, from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, into the 2000s, and then his career started to slow down. But the amount of, the amount of memories that he left will last, several lifetimes. He was the voice of WWE as far as ring announcing goes. I'm not going to attempt to try and do like his voice, but the whole "and new WWF" or WWF champion, WWF Intercontinental champion, WWF Tag Team champion, he would champions. He would find a way to make a championship match mean something, or a big feud. The immortal Hulk Hogan, the incredible Hulk Hogan, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, what his voice lent so much credibility instantly to any match that he called, even from back in the early days. He started working for Vince McMahon Sr. in 1975, became a ring announcer in January of 77, would take over being a full-time announcer soon after that. When Vince McMahon got the company from his dad, he would start to go national. Howard Finkel was the first employee that he hired, and with good reason. Howard already had a name with his dad. He trusted Howard, and Howard was very smart, and knew wrestling and could help Vince McMahon Jr. like he helped Vince Sr. You would you and from April 1st, 1980 until his passing today, he was an employee in WWE 40 years. 40 fucking years. If that isn't, a testament to how respected Fink was and how much he meant to the company, I don't know what is. He even came up with the WrestleMania name. Like, he helped come up with that. And that right there shows that, he was smart, and two, he had a job for life, because that was Vince McMahon's baby, the Mania concept. But the name coming from Fink, that shows his brains, and how I don't know if he ever saw it growing like this, but knowing that the WrestleMania name will live on and that it came from Howard Finkel is, that's a lasting memory right there. That's a great, that's a great moment, in history, and it's carrying on. And who knows where WrestleMania is going to go from here, but knowing that Howard Finkel's memory will live on in that name is absolutely incredible. And he would always, in like the earlier days when they were still kind of treating it like a sport, even though it has sports entertainment feel, in the later 70s and the earlier 80s, he would still treat it like a sport. And he would be, you'd have the microphone drop down, and he'd announce 2 out of 3 falls, or, oh, this is sanctioned by this. He would give it a really cool sports feel. And then as they morphed into being more of a sports entertainment company, he would, pump up the volume, and no, not like the song, but he would definitely show, that he grasped the concept of being more sports entertainment oriented, and had a just booming personality, an incredible voice. I mean, one of the best voices in sports, I would argue. And I know some people say WWE isn't a sport. I still say it is. And especially for announcers, like in, people that would announce for baseball games and this kind of stuff. He never did commentary, or at least if he did, he didn't do it all that much, but he always had a way to draw fans in. That is just the power of the Fink's voice. And it will be sorely missed. And it has been sorely missed on a lot of broadcasts in the last decade. But as he got older, he took more of a backstage role. He was part of creative and talent relations in the earlier days, which made sense given how he had, again, worked for Vince McMahon Sr. and Vince Jr. trusted him, and many others trusted him. He would get involved in some storylines when he had to carry Von Erich, Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect feud. He would take a bribe from Ted DiBiase, and Ted DiBiase would be the ring announcer, and then they would do the whole screw job thing on the Intercontinental Championship. He had the tuxedo match with Harvey Whippleman, and like they would always like have like verbal sparrings. Harvey Whippleman, being the scuzzy guy that he was, presented on camera, and Howard always looking in disgust at him. They had a tuxedo match, I think, in January of '95, which was comedic, but hey, at least Fink got to be in his first official match, and he'd been in wrestling for like 20 goddamn years at that point. And then you go back a few years before Mania 9, which is not exactly remembered as the best WrestleMania. He was Finkus Maximus, and he was in a toga. But you go all the way back to the first Mania. I mean, what would Mania 1 have been like? If Fink had just come up with the name, that alone was enough right there. But what if he hadn't been the announcer? The show wouldn't have been nearly the same. It wouldn't have had that sports feel and that cool feel of having the Fink's booming voice. And it was a calming yet exciting voice at the same time, because it got your blood pumping, but you felt calmer knowing that you had such a great voice, promoting this event or talking about this event. Is like, okay, everything feels right because the Fink is announcing. So he really lent that great feel to it. He was always somebody that you could rely on to hit that nostalgia feel, but also give you that, feeling of, okay, I'm watching a sporting event that may be entertainment, but he makes it feel real. He makes it feel important. And that's a rare thing right now. And Fink was able to do that. And I mean, there were other companies that had their own ring announcers, and it wasn't like they were bad, not at all. There were some that weren't as great. But Fink would have worked in any other promotion, but he worked most in WWE, because as they got sports entertainment, like, he seemed real. And there are other, commentators and stuff like that seemed real, but Fink had that just feeling of being back, with the company when it first started and seeing it grow into the modern age. He did have a feud with Lillian Garcia. This was shortly after the Ken Shamrock, Chris Jericho feud in '99, or a couple years after, and he had the misogynistic thing that he was doing with Lillian Garcia, which I don't necessarily know if Finkel was all that comfortable with it, but it was a bit weird because Fink felt like he was replaced by Lillian Garcia, which kind of was by design, because he was taking more of a limited role because he'd been working with the company for so goddamn long. I can get why he was involved in storylines, and maybe he had a blast, and I hope he did, because he did make the most of his TV time when he wasn't just ring announcing. When he took a reduced role, he was still doing, like, the Hall of Fame stuff when he was introducing the Hall of Fame classes of WrestleMania, and he would do occasional shows. And then he got inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2009. I'm amazed it took that long. Now, it was good that it did in this sense. He got to be on a more worldwide stage because WrestleMania's popularity had absolutely exploded, and they had brought the Hall of Fame back a few years before that, the ceremony at least. And he got introduced, part of 2009. It was great to see because he was still in decent health at that point and was able to enjoy it and not be worn down. So at least that was very nice. His health did deteriorate sometime after Survivor Series 2011. You had Ricardo Rodriguez introduce Alberto Del Rio, and then you had Fink introduce CM Punk. And you think about the fact that it's at Madison Square Garden, the fans absolutely revered, Fink. And I think he was overcome with emotion because he looked like a bit starstruck, like, people still remember me after all this time. And you could tell it meant a lot to him. Like, he was getting emotional, and it took him a minute to get into it. But once he got into it, it was like hearing the Fink from 1980. It was just absolutely great. And he introduced CM Punk, and that was absolutely wonderful. It was also, I believe, the last pay-per-view appearance that he had. He was at the 1000th episode of Raw, part of Legends House. He would be in a backstage role, but his health had deteriorated in the past few years. So it is a miracle that he lived this long, given how he apparently was in very bad health. It is still no doubt sad that a piece of wrestling history has passed away. And it's amazing that he was only 69 years old. Because if you think about it, you think about how many decades he was in wrestling. It seemed like he would be older, or I don't. It just seems like he seems like one of those ones that would have lived a lot longer, or had lived a lot longer already. I mean, in 69, yes, it's a good age. It shows in the sense that you have lived a bit of a long life, but he still had more to live, and it's a shame that his health deteriorated so much like Bobby Heenan and much like so many from the golden era. It's just sad to see how they passed away, and just I hope that he's not in pain anymore. I mean, he's not in pain anymore. I'm glad he's not in pain anymore. It's just a shame that that's how things ended. But now imagine, and you can not be religious, but imagine if there is some big old wrestling ring up in the sky, and you got Howard Finkel, Gorilla Monsoon, Bobby Heenan, Mean Gene Okerlund, Mean Gene and Howard Finkel being reunited. Now this is where I'm going to try not to get emotional, but the amount of legendary talent that could be calling matches and having matches up in the sky would actually be something else. But Howard Finkel, definitely rest in peace. He created so many memories. Sorry, I'm stumbling a little bit here at the end. He created so many memories that will live on, and I would love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. Let me know. Let's keep Fink's memory alive. Like, share, subscribe, and there we go. That's it, folks. Share this video, and I want you to share your videos with me if you do any videos of the Fink. I would like to see them. Let's do what we can to keep him alive. I'll see you soon.